It was a rude awakening for students, members of staff, and residents of the Government Science College, Gara in Niger State, as they make frantic efforts at getting away as far as possible. At about 2 a.m., an armed group of people clad in military fatigue invaded the hostels and residents, breaking down doors, kidnapping anyone in sight. The school principal, who also escaped from the gunmen, gives his account.
When they forced the door to open, before I even come and now burst into my bedroom and arrested me. There and then they now hold me, bring me outside, that we should go to hostel direct. So they put me in front to the hostel, student hostel. So reaching there, they started arresting the student. When the student discovered that they are thief, because when they went there, they were telling the student not to run. It is soldier. More confirm me, I saw the person that came to my house in a flag soldier uniform. The other one with the uniform of Nigerian army. The two of them. The other one wear black coat. There are 3 numbers that came here. So when after when we were there, they gathered most of the students. While some of the students started running into the bush. The little one they caught, which I cannot ascertain the number. We were there standing down, gather us together and start touching us two. So when they started touching us two, my family have already been arrested.
Some of the students who luckily escaped from the attack are not happy at the slow response of security agencies.
They started chasing students out in the hostel, and they followed them, and they were also shooting to the point that they killed one person. They shot him in the head, and they packed some people from the hostel and kidnapped them. They are still nowhere to be found till now.
Seriously, let government take action on this issue, because all the education has turned upside down. We students now, we are not happy with what just happened.
With the figure released by the state government, more efforts may now be required to hasten the rescue of the students and other people kidnapped from the school.
Oh yes, indeed, that report details the matter agitating our minds, and you heard there, well, at least while we're reviewing the papers, some of them did count the number of days since we spoke of the last abduction of students from a secondary school here in Nigeria. Then it was Kankara, now it's 68 days after, and now it's Kagara. And, you know, it's just another symptom, some will say, of what is going on with the security situation in the country. To shed a little more light and to say, you know, whether we're really making any progress or whether we should be reviewing the steps we're taking so far, we have with us in the studio retired Major General Henry Ayola, who is a former commander of Special Task Force Operation Safe Haven. You're welcome, General.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
We also have with us Dr. Ahmed Adamu, who is a senior lecturer at Nile University and also a policy analyst. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, gentlemen, you have seen and heard you know, the events being recounted as they happened yesterday, and this is happening just the day after we saw people being abducted from a state transport service, and we're still trying to recover from the shock of that, because this time around, very strangely, the abductors released a video very much in the style of Boko Haram terrorists, where they actually tried to taunt Nigerians and of course the security agencies that we have your people come and pay ransom. Oftentimes these requests for ransoms are usually quite surreptitious and oftentimes to the family members of those who have been abducted. But this time around, it's a new dimension. General, what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, usually when we try to analyze cases of kidnapping, abduction, hostage taking, the dividing line has been that in our experience in Nigeria, it has been more of kidnapping and abduction, in the sense that, as different from hostage taking, the people are moved away, either students or wherever, they are moved away to an unknown location. Unlike the general known cases where hostage taking is in situ. And so you can talk, you can negotiate with the hostage takers, you know where they are and all of that. That itself has made our case more difficult than the usual. You know, but this time, since they have come out this way, it reduces the, you know, the what we call the immediate action chain. You know, where the first thing is that there is a detection, okay, and the next thing is attribution. Now, both of these are covered in the sense that the case has been detected, the attribution has been done because they have owned up, those who have done it. Of course, we don't know them like a normal group. Like you can't put a tag, like we could say it's Boko Haram that is responsible for a particular. But we know that they are bandits. I mean, that's the generic word. Then the next thing is motives. What are their motives? And with what they have done by, you know, making a video and all that, it tells you that usually motives are two major, you know, categories. Either is expressive, in which case the abductors are making a point or agitating for something, and so they are doing it to show, you know, a kind of displeasure. But in this case, it's also clear, the motive is clear because they're asking for ransom, which is the instrumental. That's the second category of motive, that people would do it as an instrument of getting something, in this case, to get money. Mm. And because we've done a lot of this negotiation with abductors, kidnappers, it's becoming very fashionable for them to keep doing it. Sometimes government is helpless because the life of a single person is more important than whatever amount of money you pay. But then the downside of that is to look at this kind of effect that it will have to encourage others to want to do just for the sake of getting the money. Okay, so that's where we are now. Mm. Now is what to do to get them. Well, I'm happy that the president has given the orders already, you know, for the armed forces and the police to put up their best to get these children back. Now, one thing that is very prime in this case, you know, and where we see the repetition of schools, I mean, right from the February 2014, the boys' school in Buniyad in Yobe State, to the April 2014, the girls in Chibok, to the 2018 girls in Dapchi, and then last year, December, the boys in Kankara in Katsina State. Now, that tells you something, that they have found that, of course, I mean, children are precious. There's nobody whose child will be there and will be at ease. And when they kidnap adults, you could still wait some time. But when it's children, it gets everybody's attention. And that's what they are played on. So that it's not just the parents of those children they are talking to. It's a deliberate intimidation of the entire community, of the entire nation, to say, look, we have this freedom of action, and we can do it again and again. So the ball is in our court to call off this bluff and you know, and do something drastic that would discourage a repetition of this cycle.
Well, let's you know, mix things up. We must say that they haven't done a video of the Kagara abductions. I only brought up the video that was done of the abductions in Niger State of the people who were taken on the state transport service, okay. You know, which happened just a day or so before this. We saw this kidnap in Kagara. But any surprises for you? Because in the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about the degenerating security situation. We've seen a number of governors go to pay the president a visit in the villa, talking about the security situation in the estates. We saw the governor, more specifically, the governor of
Zamfara?
No, not Zamfara now. The governor of Nasarawa State,
yes.
Talk about how Boko Haram terrorists have taken over a particular route, you know, coming towards Abuja. So if we begin to see pockets of this style of abduction, should we be surprised?
Yeah, we should also be worried, because if you look at the trend, the escalation of the insecurity in the country, it's been getting worse and worse in different forms. You know, initially we didn't have these kind of cases of kidnapping, abduction, and this kind of armed gangs before. What we used to have was just militancy for oil and gas benefits back there in the south. But then we had the Boko Haram, and then we still have the Boko Haram around, and then we have the armed gangs, the armed bandits, the kidnapping, now the abduction, and the petty thefts, the robbery going on in the country. So it's getting worse and worse. So we should be worried and concerned about the situation we are going into as a country. And this also tells us that we are not applying the right approach in handling these issues. We've seen what happened since from the issue of Chibok, and that these people went on to Dapchi again. and now they went to Kankara, and now Kagara. And the which school is next? And Kankara is just recently. And it happened, I think we have to go back and look at what happened during the Kankara abduction. The government officials said they didn't pay any ransom. But people are still concerned. Maybe the officials may not want to tell us the truth, what really happened behind the curtain. Some people allege that money has been paid. And some people are even alleging that this is another means for corruption. The government official might say, we pay so amount of money, and while the bandits are collecting far less than that. Some people allege 800 million was paid. And the bandits are saying, some of them, according to what we heard from other people, they said they only collected 30 million. So all this has not been substantiated. It's just allegation. But we have to be very, very proactive. We don't have to be very reactive all the time. It has always been 100% successful. Anytime they attempted to abduct students from school, it happened. And there is no way the security at this kind of approach and situation could have averted this kind of attack or abduction. So to me, I think we have to look at the causes. And instead of just combating the effects and trying to see what can we do after it happened, now let's look at how does even these things started to happen initially. So to me, I think it's a system failure. There is no administration that will come and fix security situation in Nigeria without addressing 3 system problems. Because it's our economic system, our family system, and our political system that brought us to where we are today. When we talk about economic system, the access to basic standard of living is a subject of money. For you to even live in this country, it's a function of money. If you fall sick, if you don't have money, you die. If you want to have access to quality education, you don't have money, you cannot. And everything is centered around money. Security, your own security, transport, water, energy, everything is money. And then there is so much desperation for the money. And if people don't have money to go to school, they don't have awareness. And then they can do anything because they're desperate. They can do anything for the money. And this is the desperation we are seeing in the form of kidnapping, abduction, and killings around the country. And sometimes these people are, they were potentially innocent people, these armed bandits. But because they are frustrated at the same time, they are desperate and they are frustrated. Maybe they've started doing some small businesses and they're not succeeding, they're not getting the money enough to pay for the basic standard of living. And now someone that is desperate and frustrated, what will happen to that person? Someone wants to go to school to get quality education. He doesn't have the money to do that because the system said you must have money to get access to quality education. Then what do you do?
Do you think that we stand the risk of justifying this bandit?
No, I'm not trying to justify, but to point to the cost, real cost. What I'm saying is that let's change the system so that it's just about your wish, your willingness to get access to quality education. If I want to get quality education, I will get it, even if I don't have the money. If I want to get health care, I should get it. It's economic system. We are operating an excessive capitalist economic system where everything is centered around money. And then why is the government? The government should be there to help these people. There is a lady that dropped from school. Why? Because he couldn't pay the tuition fees. They wanted to sell their house property just to pay for the school, but they couldn't do that. And now this woman, she's not going to the school. What will you want this person to do? And this may lead her to losing her character. And a young person wants to go to school. He doesn't have the money to pay for that. What would you want that person to do? So what I'm saying is we need to look at the future recruits of all these kind of gangs that are likely to come forward. Because these people are Nigerians. We see them around, how desperate they become. They want to really make it in life, but they couldn't get it. So to me, this is the first economic system failure. The second one is family system failure, because we fail to have population management system. Our population is growing, is exploding without control, and is overwhelming compared to our available resources. We don't have educational resources, health resources, and facilities to cater for the growing population. So we have to grow, we have to manage the population that will be compatible for our own resources. And that's number two. That quickly, number three is the political system. When we have this kind of expensive and at the same time lucrative political system, then the tendency of electing the right leaders is very minimal. And when we don't have the right leaders, there will not be justice. And if there is no justice, there is no security. So we have to go back to the fundamentals. When we say we capture these people, we kill them, no armed bandits will come up again, because the system that is producing them is still there. So ever again, continuously, again and again, we keep going into this kind of excessive insecurity again and again, where we have to fix this system failures.
Well, indeed, fix it we must, but some people say we have to understand precisely what's going on, because, excuse me, there are insinuations that there is a plan, it would seem, to overwhelm the state. You know, do you see that here playing out anywhere? I mean, the pockets of criminality we're seeing over and over again, when you see suspected or kidnappers holding RPGs, I mean, it does raise big questions as to what exactly they're trying to tell the state.
Yeah. Okay, you want me to handle that?
Yes, please.
Okay. I agree with a whole lot what Ahmad had said, but I think most of the profiling that have been done so far had shown that most of them are not Nigerians. And let's go back a little, let's back up a little. The history of kidnapping in Nigeria, before the 90s, you know, banditry was something strange to Nigeria. I mean, we had things like armed robbery and, you know, petty stealing and all of that, but banditry has its origin about the mid-90s, which was a fallout of some of the internal crises of our neighbors, all the way from Libya, Mali, then Chad, Niger, you know, the changes that happened, the power changes that happened in those countries, and those who were displaced, who were loyal to one of the faction and the other, and they had arms, and they strode into our country, of course, because the borders were porous. They are still porous, because, I mean, so that was the beginning. In fact, what we call multinational joint task force now, with the headquarters in N'Djamena, actually started about between that 1994 and 1998. Precisely 1998. It was a small task force, an army task force. It was called Task Force 20, which was meant to check this influx of these foreigners with arms and so on. And because they needed to feed, they started with just blocking roads and robbing, you know, passengers and things like that. That's the basic, you know, start point. And of course, later it grew. Then Chad and Niger came in, because of course they recognized that these problems this flowing in was coming from their end. So they joined, and it became a three-nation thing. And then it grew later when Northern Cameroon joined it. And that was one good thing that this administration did when they came in 2015, to boost the multinational joint task force and move the headquarters to N'Djamena. That's what happened. So we know that this is like more of an external thing to us. Now, but the issue is, so it trumps up the issue of border control, border security. It trumps up the issue of, to what extent can we allow, I mean, people are, you know, giving the reason of, say, oh, ECOWAS protocol allows ECOWAS members to come into our country. But ECOWAS protocol does not mean that people come into our country and override your local administration and rules and regulations. No. I mean, that you can live somewhere doesn't mean you go there and take anywhere you like. Either it's outside the urban planning, you know, program of the place. Either you know, nobody does that. Nobody allows that anywhere. We can keep our bargain, our part of the, you know, the ECOWAS protocol without necessarily jeopardizing our security. Okay, so
and there are still rules. I mean, if you go to Ghana or Togo today, you have to show your passport, and it has to be stamped in and things of the stuff.
I mean, the fact that you are free to go to a place doesn't mean you go there and override and obliterate their rules and do what you like, when you like, how you like, if you like. No, it's not done.
But General, it raises big questions. If you say that, you know, indeed you try to trace a bit of, you know, the history of banditry and kidnapping in the country. However, you know, it raises questions about the capacity of our security agencies, because some people will say we should have seen this coming. There should have been projections. If we see that, you know, problems are happening in neighboring countries, it would definitely have implications for us. When we saw the fall of Libya, for instance, and yes, people were talking about how arms will now flow freely down into West Africa and all of that. We should have put measures in place. It does look like we were caught unawares.
Yeah, the issues are not that straightforward. These issues are not like black and white. There are gray areas. First, we must recognize that most of our boundaries in the northern part of the country share kith and kin across those borders. I mean, in some part of Yobe State, it's like somebody living in Kogi to Victoria Island. When he crosses the border, he doesn't even know he's crossing any border. I mean, there are kith and kin across those borders.
Like that in almost all border communities.
And because it's a large expanse area, in the south maybe it's not as pronounced because the pathway are limited. But in the north, because of the terrain, I've been to Yusufari before. All of those Yusufari, they are pure deserts with no road, with no thing. So, I mean, everywhere is way. So how do you control influx in those kind of places? How many fruits? Of course, today, with technology now, there is so much that can be done. But all of these are capital-intensive, projects. When you are talking of a nation with so many competing needs, each sector crying for attention. There's so much, but there's still, the way it has come to us now, we got to give it a better shot than we've been doing. That's what it means. And again, for me, I look at it. You made the point. There is a build-up. There's obviously a build-up. Why is it suddenly that banditry is everywhere? Is there an external conspiracy to destabilize Nigeria? We should be asking that kind of question. And for us, is there a connivance? Because, if you come from outside to my country and you are making my country ungovernable, or you are jeopardizing my security, it should be easier for me to deal with you as a foreign element than dealing with my own people. So why have we condoned it this much? These are the kind of questions we should be asking ourselves. And if it's happening concurrently like this, then I have a background as a signal officer. That's what we call traffic analysis. When you begin to see traffic in certain direction, there are many interpretations as to what that portends. Where are we heading to? What is to be gained by those who are behind this? What are we trying to achieve? So these are all the questions that should come up. But of course, there are things that can still be done. Now, I'm glad that different arms of government are paying attention now. Before, we were leaving everything to the executive. We've seen the Senate coming up with ideas, talking about, asking the president to declare a state of emergency, suggesting state police. These are great ideas. Okay, so they need to drive it through.
But they have been on it since last year. At the minimum, it does look like this time around that is the executive that is foot dragging. Well,
they can do their own part as the legislative arm. Yes. So whichever part the executive has to do, we have to take it off from there. But I look at it this way. Okay, we saw the new service chiefs went there immediately. And I think it was the same day they were just finishing from their clearance from the house, and I listened to the new chief of army staff, General Ibrahim Atahiru, and he made one point that really gladdened my heart and gave me more hope. His new vision for the army is crafted in such a way that he said within a joint environment, which is one thing that I've been missing, the synergy, that ought to be. So I look forward to, most of the operation happening jointly, and the control being exercised from the defense headquarters, so that there is economy of effort, there is concentration of force, and then that will give us the advantage that we ought to have, instead of having, sporadic efforts here and there. And if the armed forces, and of course the initiative that the NSA also took in calling the service chiefs together and forming, a security committee that will be doing this kind of assessment from time to time. These are good steps. So there's a whole hope in the new setting, and with the hope that they will get all the support also. It was a former president of France, Georges Clemenceau, who says that war is too serious a business to be left in the hands of the generals. Now, what that means is that the dominant political strategic level is where most of this, boxed up. And so we have to, that has to come to bear to make a difference. If not, we will just discover that even the change of services will not make more difference if they don't get all of that support from that level. Now, that's one area. The other area to look at is this. Let's look at, now we said attribution is settled, isn't it? But the attribution this time, like I said, is not even tied to a known name. Okay? So again, that still leaves a lot of intelligence loophole as to who are these people. Apart from the fact that we know that most of them are foreigners. Okay? I mean, you cannot use the excuse of your survivor to destabilize a whole nation. Okay? So we should be asking, is there something more? And if there's something more, what should be our response? Because all these are still postulations. Because what I find out is that when you want to do analysis, and your analysis are based on false facts, then you are likely to be engaged in an exercise in futility. We need to first of all get our facts right. What exactly is the problem? Who is this enemy we are fighting? It's only then our analysis could be correct, and then we can then prefer certain measures. But let's take, for example, that at least we know this much, that they are mainly foreigners. So what should we be doing? Usually, notwithstanding the divisions in the nation, when there is an external aggression against a nation, we ignore all our differences and unite to fight that external aggression. That's what we should do.
Are we agreed that this is all external aggression?
That's an odd proposition I'm making. I'm making an if proposition, an odd proposition. If that is the issue. If there is actually an external conspiracy, and we want our nation, then the odd proposition will be that we should unite. I've seen it's good that the governors are moving, talking among one another and all of that, and yeah, we should unite, and we should be seen to be facing a common enemy. That way, we will be able to do a whole lot.
We'll now take it to Lagos now, where my colleagues have questions for the guests in the studio. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Makwe. Let me begin with Dr. Adamu. Policy is what this is at the heart of. I'll reference something that General Ayola said the other time about the role of politics in a war such as we have on our hands. If we are looking at policies, in what way do you think policy may have been responsible for the crisis we have on our hands, and what should we be doing now to tackle the issues?
I think first is to understand the sources of this conflict, the sources of this insecurity. And I started talking about the system failures. So you cannot come out with policy until you do a research. You need to look at the trend, you need to look at what is happening and at what scale, and then you come up with policy. And that's why I said, whatever we do, we are just curtailing the effects of the main problem. The main problem can only be understood when we look at the system issues, because these are the insecurity we have in the country are effects of system failures. So for us to really fix this insecurity problem, we have to look at these system issues, like I mentioned.
Well, Dr. Damo, if you don't mind me butting in for a bit.
This is a national...
Just a moment. Now, let's get into certain specifics, perhaps as an example. Now, we have been talking about this farmer-herder crisis for a good number of months now. And that is even just at the time that we have a pandemic on our hands. And definitely, it has cut across, the issues have cut across so many other strata of our lives. Economic, food shortage is something that we're talking about now, largely, and all of that. So if we're going to take an example of this farmer-herder clash that has festered into so many other departments of life, what system failure or what policy failure are we dealing with?
Yeah, farmer-herder issue, I believe, is the genesis of some of our crises, especially in the border states. Initially when it started with cattle rustling, when some people started stealing these cattle from the herders, and then in the process of recovering these cattle, and the innocent herders lost their cattle, and then they become angry, they become agitated, and they felt that they are neglected and there is no concern for them in terms of providing infrastructure. They left outside the main towns and they live in these rural areas. They are deprived, and that's what made them agitated. And I think we have to look back into those issues that lead to all this insecurity. And that's why I want to also refer back to what General said, saying that this could be the influx of foreign armed gangs coming from other countries. I believe the insecurity we have is internal. I understand there could be proliferation of arms from neighboring countries, but I believe these armed bandits are Nigerians. We may not recognize them as Nigerians because we neglected them and they were left out there. We thought they are not our problems because we thought we are okay because we can take care of our children. We neglect them, and this is the effect of neglecting other people. So I believe not giving them the attention they require, not providing the provision for them, I think that's what led them to become agitated and angry. So I believe this is a national emergency now. You see, when you neglect certain set of people, that's injustice, and this is coming back to us. And I think that's why I agree with the National Assembly that we should have a state of emergency on the insecurity, so that we don't have to follow all these procedures and these protocols, because this is getting out of hand. So I believe we have to look at the population issue, population management. We don't want to give birth to population and to people that we cannot cater for. If you give birth and grow population that you cannot give them education, you cannot give them security and health care, what are you doing? You are also giving birth to potential recruits into these armed bandits. So I believe the policy has to go back to the grassroots and resolve these system failures.
Well, General Yola, let me ask you, over time, some of the victims that we usually interview, and for some of which we have on tape, we always hear them say the attackers were clad in military fatigue. And that seems to, I mean, it's a huge concern. And it does have the potential to always influence the impression that people will have against security agencies, or perhaps those who they say they're clad in their fatigue. Do you think, from what you've seen, are we doing enough to address that particular challenge?
Sorry, the volume is so faint for me. I don't know. I didn't get quite that question. I got the last part very well. I didn't get the background.
Okay, I was talking about many of those, well, I mean, for those who we have on tape, we've had quite a number of them say, the victims now, that the attackers are clad, or usually clad in military fatigue. And this could affect the confidence, the trust that they have with security agencies. Do you think we're doing enough to address that?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I think I got it now. Well, I think everybody knows now that access to military uniform is not, is not restricted. Anybody can get access to military uniform. So, of course, there are usually some basic identification issues that you can use to distinguish between either they are Boko Haram or bandits who are using military uniform. Camouflage uniform can be bought in the market, can be brought from abroad, so it's no longer an issue. But I think the more that the government forces can do is to give confidence to the people and to keep some kind of enlightenment program on to distinguish false people in uniform and the real uniform forces. But that shouldn't have any serious effect with what the forces are doing to help the situation. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. But again, talking about the real issue, the real security issue, I think it brings back to light what we have been advocating, the issue of restructuring. And I think the state of security in the nation right now actually gives us a takeoff point. Because, like it's been preferred in many circles that, look, why don't we even try state police as part of a measure to help solve, because security, like I've said this on this platform before, that security, like politics, is first local.
We first of all tried, I mean, we have seen some regional security outfits come up as a result of the security situation in town, even though the states have since claimed that no, it's not, they're not regional security outfits, they are state security outfits, and they're not to carry arms, they're only to assist the bodies already carrying arms. How effective would you say that for the states that even have those in place? How effective would you say that they've been in helping to manage the level of criminality in their states?
Yeah, thank you very much. You just given the reason why they have not been that effective, because it's still done within the limit of what they're allowed to do. And of course, the fact that they cannot carry arms already says so much limit. But I mean, we will do well if the legislative house goes ahead to put force behind their suggestion by amending the constitution to allow sub-national police, down the line. Then that way they can have, I mean, already as it is, most of the states spend a whole lot of money equipping the police command in their states. Haven't gone that far. The only thing really left is control of those, services and forces. So if they get that, then the governments of those states can then, do as much as they will want to do without that kind of limitation that exists right now. And that's part of what we've been advocating. In fact, because of that, we're going to have a restructure actualization summit this month, Thursday next week, 25th of this month. Because this issue has come to a head, and we all need to give it a shot. Maybe, in fact, as a furtherance of declaring a state of emergency, maybe there should be a national security conference.
Some people will say it's another talk shop. But let me quickly pose this. And we really shouldn't get tired of talking, because as people say, it's better to judge than to war. Yeah. But, some people will say, are we learning any lessons at all? I mean, the fact that we're chronicling now the number of schools that are being attacked, and as General pointed out, it seems this is now lucrative business. I do recall very clearly that in the wake of the Chibok kidnappings, which we are yet to recover from, because not all of the girls were recovered, there was a safe school initiative which was launched with a bit of fanfare, that at least at the minimum schools should have some minimum level of security. It looks like we've abandoned that thoroughly, especially when you look at the list of kidnappings that we've seen afterwards. What should we be doing about the safety of our schools? Because we also stand to jeopardize the future of our children when we continue to shut down boarding schools as a result of the security situation, don't we?
Yeah, I think in terms of scaring the country, I don't want to look at it from scaring a particular location or look at scaring a school. Because if you scare the school, what about homes? What about roads? People nowadays cannot travel. What if the student along the way, they were kidnapped? Just a few hours before the kidnapping in the Kagara, you said some people in the bus were kidnapped. What about those people? So it's not about a particular group or section or location in the country. It's the general security of the country we're talking about. We understand the importance of education, and this poses a threat to the access to quality education for the future generation. And if young people are now afraid to go to school because they don't know which school is next, now that tells you that the future is really not bright, because these are the people that have to be in school right now. And to me, I think what happened in the previous school kidnapping is what gives birth to this one. Because
the reason why we have to bring up schools, because we see over and
the
over
occurrence
again
of that.
because
like
boarding schools have been, especially government boarding schools that are not very strong in terms of protection, have been the ones that have been the subject of attack.
Yeah, I support we should maintain or provide relative security for schools, so that at least this could be minimized. But these people that have sophisticated arms, they can even overpower the security provision you might provide. And that's why I say we just have to look back and see where these things coming from and fix the sources. And I think giving them money or giving them ransom is what motivates them to do it again and again. And I think, to me, being very light with them is not a solution. And I support some politicians that believe that these people are not people that you sit down with them on the table and negotiate, because these people insult us as a country, and they kill the Nigerians, and now you are now saying come and reconcile with them. Though I appreciate this kind of measure is being done in Zamfara State, it was effective. At least there is a minimal reduction. There is a reduction in this kind of cases. And now what these people are doing, they now go to Zamfara and hide because there is a reconciliation, there is agreement that they accept they should not do any operation in Zamfara State. But what they do, they come into Katsina State and attack, and they go back to Zamfara. So you can see relative difference in terms of measures the state governments are taking. And I think, to me, for these people, I support the governor of Niger State. I say he's not going to pay any ransom. But I hope he will stick to his words.
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we really want is the safe return of the children. Because if he says not paying ransom, and then
but if they come back and then feature children, another again, it happens again.
Indeed,
that's what we're trying to avoid.
I think we have to avoid that. But I do know that, anyways.
Let me say a word about securing the schools.
General, sorry, we're totally out of time. Okay. I wish we could go and to talk about that, and it would have been something that would have been worthwhile. But we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning and sharing your honest thoughts with us. Retired Major General Henry Ayola is the former commander of Special Task Force Operation Safe Haven, and we also had with us Dr. Ahmed Adamu, who is a policy analyst and a senior lecturer at Nile University. Well, we're still going to be talking about security, but that will be it for this segment. Please don't go away.
Well, yes, we've got His Excellency Yaya Bello, Governor of Kogi State, joining us next today on the program. Good morning, Your Excellency, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, clearly, and rightly so too, the country...
Thank you. Good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning, viewers.
Thank you. The country is rightly concerned about what is going on. How do we ensure lasting peace? So there's been different meetings. We've seen how the governors have visited Ibadan, Ogun, all meeting, trying to see how they could come up with a solution about all of this. But we've got people who equally will say, well, yes, we've seen them meet at different times for different reasons, some including security. But from what we've seen lately, what can we or should the citizens expect in terms of the capacity of the governors to actually come up with a solution about what is going on now?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. Like I said, first of all, let me, on behalf of the government and the good people of Kogi State, throw our hearts to my colleague, Governor Sani Bello of Niger State, and the people of Niger State, the children and families of those that were kidnapped school in Kagara yesterday. It is unfortunate, one too many, and we pray for the safe return of these children. Yes, yesterday, unfortunately, I couldn't attend the meeting of the NGF. I had to send my deputy to represent me because the 37 youths of leaders of this country, the National Youth Council of Nigeria, paid a courtesy call on me yesterday. I had an interactive session, and I couldn't attend. But from the breaking news and I heard was that governors are taking steps in ensuring that there is lasting peace in this country. Well, I'm a governor, and there are other 35 other governors. I can talk of my own capacity, and I'm advocating for all of us to bend down, sit down, and take this insecurity head-on and ensure that our entities, our federating units, our states are secured. As chief security officers, that is our duties and responsibilities, and if we sit up and do our job, Mr. President's job will be less. We have 36 units, including FCT. Each and every one of us, I said, should sit down and do our job. When I assumed office in Kogi State, everybody knows that Kogi State used to be a hotbed for criminality, banditry, Boko Haram, armed robbery, and the rest. Communal clash and clannish, religious. But within the first 6 months of my coming into office, I put a stop to all such menace. And today, Kogi State is the safest state as far as Nigeria is concerned. I ensure that I'm connected to the people. I ensure that the people have trust and belief in my style of leadership and in my administration. And the people cooperated very well with law enforcement agencies. I ensure that the law enforcement agencies that are existing in my state, from the Army, Police, Navy, DSS, and Civil Defense, there's collaboration and cooperation, intelligence sharing, and good management of information within us here. And as the Chief Security Officer, I did not pay or play politics with insecurity. I ensure that such insecurity came to an end. So all of us should be on our toes and do our job in our various states. That is my thinking, my take for it.
Okay, but listen to you, I mean, some will think, are you suggesting that if the governors actually, perhaps in your words, sit up, these cases will not degenerate as far as it has gone now?
I am a governor of one state. Honestly speaking, the security challenges in various states differ, even though there's a generic one of armed robbery, banditry, and kidnapping. But every crime takes place on the land, not in the air or not in the sky. And there are people that occupy or live in these areas. And they have information. Once such informations are being provided, if they trust the government well enough and provide such information, we should be able to act on it and deal with it squarely. You see, the Nigeria police that are existing today is the same Nigeria police that are in Kogi State. The army that are existing in the country today is the same we have here. All the law enforcement agencies as we have them across the 36 states, including FCT, is exactly what I have in Kogi State. We are corroborating. My commissioner of police, my director DSS, my army commander, my naval commander, civil defense commander, we are all corroborating, and they are relating very well with the citizens. We are connected to the people. And leadership at all levels are doing their best, starting from the community leaders, the ward leaders, the local government chairmen and leaders, before the state. Youth leaders, women leaders, market women leaders, and all what have you. We are corroborating very well. Farmers. So such information, whenever they provided it, we act on it swiftly. We don't pay lipstick service. We don't pass buck. We don't visit Abuja for solution at all times. I don't think there's any day I've ever visited Abuja for any solution. What I do is to sit down here and do my job.
Well, if I could just give an analogy on that, there are states that have come up with, I mean, the state assemblies, they come up with anti-open grazing laws, different provisions for different states. And that is as far as they can do concerning the law within their state, I reckon. But that notwithstanding, they still say that in spite of those laws, you still have herders who are violating those laws. And since they say we don't control security, the center does control security, that is where they are hamstrung about.
We are Nigerians, Chamberlain. That is why I said, you see, despite all laws, you see, when at all times I always hear about laws, laws, laws. Yes, it is good to have laws, but it is good to have workable laws. In this country, we have enough laws. All we need to do is to deploy sincerity, is to deploy, is to be in touch with the people. Let us ensure that any law we are going to pass is enforceable, it is useful, it is workable. Yes, we know today that open grazing is no longer, in vogue, it's no longer feasible. We can't advance with open grazing any longer. I am not saying that open grazing is the answer or the way to go. But here in Kogi State, there is still open grazing. Farmers and herders are cohabiting. We didn't have law prohibiting open grazing. In fact, We accommodate Fulanis, we accommodate Hausas, we accommodate Yorubas, we accommodate Igbos, we accommodate everybody here in Kogi State, and they live here. They've been living here for decades, for centuries. We met them there. All we need to do is to ensure that, look, there is synergy. Whatever is obtainable 10 years ago that is no longer obtainable today, it is physical, you will see it. The people will know that this is no longer feasible. And there's no need making some laws sometimes that are not enforceable. Okay, you enforce law that there should be no open grazing, then cows, there is open grazing, you arrest cows, you kill Fulanis, you kill the headers or the cattle, and there's reprisal and crisis everywhere. I think let us just be in tune with what the society needs. Let us ensure that we do our job. That is just what it is. Well, and of course, it is not only limited to Kogi State alone or the state government alone. Federal government should equally come up. For instance, issue of cattle ranching, that is what is modern. That is the way we should go. There are categories of people in Nigeria that is their trade, that is their business. Let there be concerted, deliberate, and goodwill in coming up with funds. Just like we build out airlines, we build out banks, we are directly involved in farmers, especially crop farming. Let us equally, deliberately get involved in ranching and ensuring that Fulanis are well settled and enhance their business for them. There's nothing wrong in that. I mean, it was muted in the National Life Transformation Program, but
we'll come to all those issues that you have raised
around the National Life Transformation Program.
Yes.
And let's ensure that every state that desires peace, especially those that are harboring, that are having the challenges of this Fulani headers crisis.
We'll come to those issues, Your Excellency, if you can hear me. Yes, Your Excellency, part of the issues you raised earlier about the need for the chief executives of states to do their jobs, very, very interesting, some would say. But then I know that the NGF is a kind of experience sharing group for governors. I'm wondering, were these kinds of experiences shared among, your colleagues, things that you did and maybe one or two other, state governors did to ensure that there is peace in their environment? Did you have such meetings previously to say, okay, these are the kind of things that you think we can do to do our jobs to ensure that there is peace in the environment?
Thank you very much. Yes, NGF is just a forum of governors to compare for peer review mechanism, so to speak. But however, the experience you share in the NGF to depend on the priority of each and every one of us. I must say straight away that there are some of us that are more serious on our jobs than the other. I won't call names. There are some of us who are prioritizing our job and we're doing it very well in our various states, and some are simply playing politics. And the earlier we stop that, the better. And let's lessen the burden of Mr. President, and let's save the lives of our people. What happened in Shasha in Ibadan is most unfortunate. It is most unfortunate what happened in Shasha in Ibadan. These are victims attacking victims. The Yorubas attacking Hausa Fulanis are victims. The Hausa Fulanis attacking Yorubas are victims of maladministration successively from the past, even sometimes, even currently. So, when you share or you compare experiences, you share it, it is just probably advisory. You must not necessarily take somebody's experience. And sometimes it depends on peculiarity of where you're operating from. At least in Kogi State, we are having a heterogeneous kind of composition, religious-wise, ethnic-wise, and various divergent background. And we are handling it very well here. So I see no reason why majorly, in some states where you have just 2 tribes or 1 tribe and they'll be attacking each other, we should be able to stand up and stamp our feet on ground and put a stop to the menace. It is not needed. It is not needed at this time. We require to have empathy for our people. We should preach love and affection among our people. And let us get involved in the governance of our state. Let us get connected to the community. At least before it gets to the level of burning houses, killing one another, burning livelihoods, markets, and destroying our lives. We should have enough intelligence. We should be able to nip it in the bud and not allow it escalate to that level. Before we'll now be talking of governors visiting each other, calling on federal government. For crying out loud, are we expecting Mr. President to be in Oyo State in Shasha to prevent that mayhem? Are we expecting Mr. President to carry AK-47 and be safeguarding all schools? Are we expecting Mr. President to be on the highway? I mean, we should get connected to our people and ensure that they connected with us as well and come up with solutions to solve this problem once and for all.
But Your Excellency, pardon me if I could just jump in, because there are governors who have said, look, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. A lot stops at his table. What is wrong if they're asking him to act as such?
There's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong about saying Mr. President is not the commander. President is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He gives command. But it behoves on all the commanders, all of us that are in our various states, to do our job. As I speak now, I mean, a lot of my colleagues would understand exactly what I'm saying. I told you, I used Kogi State as, for example. There have been presidents before President Muhammadu Buhari. There has been governors before I came on board. And I said that in Kogi State used to be a hotbed of criminals. Yet we have, Kogi State is a microcosm of Nigeria. But I have put a stop to communal clash, fight over farmlands, fish ponds, clannish, festival, and what have you. Just pockets of highway, kidnapping sometimes. And let me tell you, every kidnap or any kidnap that takes place in Kogi State, we always go after them and liquidate them. So, I am doing my job here. I am not expecting Mr. President. Of course, there was one time or the other that, one community attacked another one here. But I don't have to allow it to escalate. I did not run to the villa and say, Mr. President, please come and secure my enclave for me. I don't have to disparage the security agencies. They are doing their best within the limited resources. All I did was to ensure that the communities live in peace. I foster love. I foster cooperation. And I ran this administration, I'm running this administration with open heart, with all amount of sincerity. And the people know. Open book, open door policy. They believe me. They believe in law enforcement agencies that are existing in Kogi State. They volunteer information. They have people to reach, starting from community to ward to the local government before the state. And I ensure that any insecurity escalates to the national level in Kogi State. Even ordinary outbreak of disease, I ensure that we take care of it in Kogi State here without necessarily escalating it. That is the point, that's what I'm saying. So if every one of us is doing our job in that manner, Nigeria is too big, is too sweet, is too blessed. to be having all these kind of crises at hand.
You know, many already know your views about the recent health challenge hitting the country and the world, but speaking about security still, I mean, when you say time and again that as you speak, governors will understand, but there are many who are watching who may not quite understand what your point is exactly, because when you say they play politics with security, is there any governor of any state who doesn't like peace in the state? Because without peace, how will investors come into the state? How will they govern in peace?
Every governor signed to protect lives and livelihood. I don't think there's any governor that is up to give up the lives and livelihood of his citizens. I am simply saying, let's do our job and do it properly, with all amount of sincerity. And if we do that, our enclaves, our states will be safer than it is today. Everybody is doing his own best in his own state, but there are still a lot more to be done. Even in Kogi State, as much as we are enjoying peace and security today, there are still a lot more that needs to be done. I am not resting. My officials are not resting. The law enforcement agencies are not resting as well, including the citizens that are cooperating and giving us every support. We are not resting as well. So it is a continuous process. And by the grace of God, if we do our job very well and we meet with our people, we will be able to stop it. Let me tell you something. Before...
Okay, well, you'll be able to say more of those things, but you've made some very, very critical statements here. You've raised the issue of the National Livestock Transformation Plan. I'd love to take you up on that, but if you can just be clear, because you've said this over and over again, that governors need to do their jobs. Are you by any chance indicting the chief security officers of each state where these security challenges occurred?
There are lapses from communities, there are lapses from local governments, there are lapses among citizens before those in authorities. Let every governor instill confidence and believe and trust in the minds and heart of our citizens so that they can cooperate with us very well. All of us are doing our best, facing various challenges in our states. But like I said, there are a lot more to be done.
Well, the National Livestock Transformation Plan that you referenced earlier has some very fantastic provisions. Chief among them, as a matter of fact, the number one of some of those factors is security. It promises that it will address conflicts, and then it'll improve access to justice and peace. Let me ask you very quickly on the justice and peace ambit. So many times when there have been insecurity outbreaks in different areas all across the nation, we talk about living in peace, you know, stemming the tide and all of that. But some people have been wronged. So people are asking, how can there be peace without justice? So how do you think we should go about that? Ensuring that trust, you know, is built would perhaps start, some people would say, with giving justice to those who have been wronged, including the farmers and the herders whose cattle may have been rustled. How do we go about that?
Justice, peace should reign when there is political will to enforce law, to ensure that we live harmoniously, when there is political will for equitable and effective distribution and utilization of resources, when there is political will to push through our programs and policies, when the issue of livestock transformation program was muted, remember, it was first given a name, Ruga. What is Ruga? Ruga means a settlement of herders or livestock farmers, provision of every amenities for them, so that we go into what we call colony of ranches. When it broke out in this country, it was politicized that, oh, Mr. President wants to colonize our lands. But here we are today. I think when we stop politicizing every government policies and programs, and let's look at the intention, the good intention of government, we will get it right. Now, the National Life Transformation Program, as it is being called again today, from Ruga to cattle colony, now to National Livestock Transformation Program. We are still on it. I wish that politics will not allow the whole process go down the drain once again. And like I said earlier, it is supposed to be an interventionist program where livestock keepers are given adequate attention, just like rice farmers, cashew farmers, and just like banks were even bailed out certain times, just like when airlines were equally bailed out certain times. These are private businesses. Let those who are ready to keep ranches access fund from either CBN, Federal Ministry of Finance, or anywhere, and settle the Fulanis once and for all. But Your Excellency, and there will be economic prosperity.
Okay, you know, we've had people who have been on this program, and they tell us that their communities have actually been invaded and they're being occupied, and I think some communities in Plateau and Benue, and so they say they have valid reasons to make those points on a case-by-case basis, and not that they were politicizing any of those national livestock transformation plans. So that was what some of them felt, so it wasn't across board. But speaking about this being a private business, the AGF was quoted to have recommended that, that it was going to advise, or it will be good to set up a pastoralism agency to handle this kind of matter. So if you say this is a private business, does that then mean that there's absolutely no point, no reason whatsoever to suggest that there be a pastoralism agency to handle this kind of matter?
There are agencies that are taking care of several other private businesses. Let me tell you, the governor of Plateau State has done excellently well in ensuring that there is peaceful coexistence and harmonious relationship between the locals and the herders in Plateau State and several other states like that. There is that concerted effort. You see, when I say politicization of that policy, in several quarters, it has been covered by, you know, a lot of guests came to these channels and other television stations to say Mr. President wants to use Ruga policy or National Life Transformation policy program to annex Nigeria for Fulanis. That is the politicization I was talking of. And then there are several of us, governors, who indicated interest to participate. We have even gone far to prepare lands, acquire lands, prepare everything for the program to take off. But today, in fact, I'm the very first person that indicated interest in the Ruga program. I knew very well I received a lot of backlash on that. But today, I'm here to be considered for that program. So, when I say politicization, that is what I mean. I'm not saying that any governor is politicizing the issue of herders, farmer crisis in their state. Of course, there should be an agency that should take care of this particular herders and farmers issue. For crying out loud, it's going to transform the economy of this country. It is not just for peaceful coexistence alone. And by the time that is considered and it is allowed, and it is not politicized again at the end of the day, I think there's that. Through that, we're going to have a lasting
permit me to butt in there,
in the
but some people will say if this is about farmer herders crisis, so far you've talked about how you have tried to buy into the Ruga plan. It's yet to take off, yet you have been able to achieve some measure of peace in Kogi State. The question is this really about a farmer-herder crisis, or is it something else in your experience?
In my experience here in Kogi State, first we desire that Ruga program or National Light Transformation Program. We desire it so that there will be lasting peace, among farmers and herders. In fact, not only herders, our teeming youths and women were indicating interest in livestock farming in Kogi State. So it would have benefited even our citizens more. But since we indicated interest and there is no headway, it is often said that when the desirable is not available, the available becomes desirable. So now we cannot send Fulanis away. We cannot send farmers away. We must devise a means of cohabiting. And that is why what we have been able to do, and then involving the traditional rulers, involving the Ardos. In fact, what we advocated for and that we are practicing here in Kogi State is in every traditional council, be it at local level, even at state level, we accommodate Fulanis. Fulanis are members of our traditional councils across board. So wherever there is any issue, it is quickly settled at that local level. Sometimes I don't even get to hear about it. And it is solved. But
the question I'm asking is, before now, I mean, we all know that Kogi State was the hotbed of kidnapping. For travelers who are coming from the south to the north or from north to south, one of the places that used to give them quite a headache was Kogi State. How have you been able to handle the issue of kidnapping? Did you find it related with farmer-herders crisis, or did you find that it was another kettle of fish and you had to do it, say, outside of the security agencies?
Okay, yes. Issue of herders farmers clash is one thing. Issue of banditry and kidnapping is another. What I simply did was to ensure that every community, every ward, every local government secure themselves. The youths, the women, the traditional rulers, were all involved. They know themselves. They know intruders. They know those who have come to harm them. They quickly pass the information early enough, and security agencies zero in. The same security agencies we are having today. They zero in, and an arrest is made immediately, and we take care of that. So that is exactly how we've been handling. And we, as much as possible, try to share information and we collaborate among ourselves. So that we're able to do, and it's working effectively in Kogi State.
What do you say to those who are now agitating for security, for state police, who say that that is not enough, that they have also adopted the same measures, but oftentimes it would seem that they are no more than chief logistic officers in their states?
Well, me as chief logistics officer in my state, if it is so called, I've been able to apply this ingenuity, and it's working here for me in Kogi State. If I'm chief logistics officer and I'm be able to provide good logistics for those that should do the job, and they are doing the job, I think we are happy for it today in Kogi State.
There are several cases, not just this term, even in the first term, several ministers have said, these are foreign herders. And I mean, several people have said when they try to speak with them, they were speaking French. And you look at them, you say, look, these are not Nigerian herders. Are you still saying we need to accommodate them? Shouldn't we be dealing with those foreign criminal herders as they are properly so-called criminals if they are caught in the act?
Like I said earlier, in Kogi State, Fulanis have cohabited with us for centuries. We know those that are living with us in peace. There are peaceful ones that migrate to our state because Kogi State is accommodating. And this is where to be.
How did you deal with the foreigners
amongst them?
Yeah,
and
the foreigners amongst them.
Yes, they themselves understand and they know those that are criminals amongst them. because we have integrated them into our community and even in our governance system here in Kogi State. They equally, in fact, you recall that majority of the victims are Fulanis themselves. So they provide information and then security agencies zero in. And then we deal with it squarely. That is exactly what we've been doing in Kogi State here.
Some governors say because the community policing initiative that was muted and funds allocated for, some of the governors have said, look, we don't have monies to sustain that kind of system unless we rejig the entire scenario. Would you, for instance, if need be paying those community police officers?
Community policing, the word community policing will be understood by different people. What we are doing here in Kogi State is community policing. Before the mock talked about community policing as we want it to be. When you see a strange face in the community, and the community reports such strange face to law enforcement agencies, and the person is dealt with accordingly, that is community policing. In Kogi State, every citizen is a police. Every citizen secure their enclaves. That is why it is easy. Security is the business of everybody. If you allow criminal to perch, if you allow criminal to settle in your community, before you call on law enforcement agencies, a lot of harm would have been done. So we educate every citizen in Kogi State that, look, secure your environment. Make sure that you report any strange face, any act of criminality, immediately to law enforcement agencies. Whenever the situation goes above them, I zero in immediately and make sure we deal with it. There are hardened criminals that have been existing in Kogi State before, and some politicians would harbor them. I make sure that I liquidate them as quickly as possible. And that ends the game of criminality in Kogi State, once and for all. We don't tolerate that in Kogi State. So if anybody is coming to settle with us or live with us, and you're coming with good intention, we welcome you wholeheartedly. There are several millions of Nigerians that have relocated to Kogi State, and we are cohabiting very well. We exploit the criminals among them without labeling where they come from, without labeling the religion they practice or the ethnicity they belong. But we deal with them as criminals once and for all, and we're living in peace and in harmony in Kogi State here. So issue of community policing first. Yeah. Let the citizens be the police themselves. Let the leaders, the religious leaders, the traditional rulers, youth leaders, women leaders, let them be police themselves and secure their environment. If a criminal goes to an environment and is not welcomed, and there are no local criminals that will harbor them, and there are no big men in those communities to harbor them, they will quit. In Kogi State, let me tell you, when I just came in, as hot as it was then, we had ISIS. In fact, in my own senatorial district, they came, they lived there, they were training Boko Haram, they came with equipments. And with the help of the military, the police, and the DSS, we did not spare anybody. We rout them out immediately. And Kogi Central and the entire Kogi State is very peaceful today. All right. That is all right, Your Excellency. About it.
All right, then we do thank you for your perspectives. We've been speaking with His Excellency Yahya Bello, Governor of Kogi State.